Welcome to Podcast 360, powered by the Podcast Academy. In 3 questions answered in 60 seconds each, you'll experience a 360-degree view of podcasting from a lineup of industry experts. The hosts of your favorite podcasts will take turns interviewing each other, creating a chain of podcast knowledge and perspective. Let's meet our industry experts. Today's host is...
Hi, I'm Robb Dunewood, co-host, writer, and producer of Daily Tech News Show and host of The Tech Jawn, a weekly tech show covering the top tech news with insights into how technology affects and disaffects communities of color. You heard me last week on Podcast 360 with host Scott Johnson of the Frog Pants Network.
And who is our guest this week?
Hi, my name is Chris Browning. I'm the host of the Popcorn Finance Podcast. It's a short-form show where I discuss money and about the time it takes to make a bag of popcorn. It's been a really fun experience working on this. I've gotten to write a column for Men's Health Magazine. I do some news segments for NBC out in Boston, and it's led me into a world and a career that I never thought I would be doing.
First, the game before the game. We ask our guests to share 2 truths and a lie. Our hosts will guess which is the lie, and we'll find out the answer together at the end of our conversation. Let's play Podcast 360.
So Chris, thanks, man, for being on Podcast 360 with me. I've been wanting to get you on the show for a while, and where I actually get to interview you. So I'm excited about this. So you ready?
I'm ready, Rob. Been waiting for this.
All right, let's dive in. So Podcast 360 always starts with a round of 2 truths and a lie. So tell me 3 facts about yourself, 2 of them true, 1 of them not so much, and I will guess which one is the lie. But I'm going to hold my guess until the end of the show. All right, what you got for me?
All right, I was thinking about these. I was trying to come up with some good ones for you. So my first one is, I recorded 13 live podcast interviews in about 24 hours when I was attending my very first conference all around podcasting back in 2017. So that's my first one.
In 24 hours?
In 24 hours,
Okay.
13 podcasts, live podcast episodes. So I was tired. Number 2 here is I've been about the same height since I was about 13. So I'm 6'2". I'm not like crazy tall, but I haven't really grown much since then. And everyone thought I was going to be about 7 feet tall because I was so tall when I was young, but it just completely shut off. And this is what I got. So
Okay, that's 2.
All right. And 3, I actually was involved in starting the first radio station at my high school. We didn't have podcasts obviously back then, so that wasn't an option, but we'd all been wanting to work on this project, and I had a teacher who bought in on it, and we were able to start it up at the local college who had a already running radio station.
Okay, that's interesting. So I got some questions. I do want to ask you a question right now. So when you were 13 at 6'2", did you have this Barry White deep voice that you have now at 13, or did that come at some point later?
You know, I don't know when the switch flipped on when my voice went from Mickey Mouse to whatever it is now. But I do remember vividly not being able to whisper in class because everybody could hear me because my voice would carry across the classroom.
Okay, so that gives me some insight. All right, man. So I'm going to make my guess right now. I might change this later, but my guess right now is that you probably did not record 13 live podcast episodes in 24 hours while at a conference, because there would have been no time to go to the conference if all you were doing was creating podcast episodes. So that's what I want to go with for now, but we'll see if we change my mind over, once we get to the end.
Oh, okay. You got no faith in me, but all right.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the 360 portion of the show. I'm going to ask you 3 questions related to podcasting, and you'll have 60 seconds to answer each. Once we get through your rapid round of answers, you can pick one of the subjects and talk about it in greater detail. So you ready to go?
Oh, all right, let's get into it.
All right, so here's question 1. When I first met you, I think you had just made the transition from part-time podcaster to full-time content creator. What motivated you to make the career shift?
You know what? For me, it was really hard to balance the 2. And I was starting to notice I was really getting pulled in 2 directions. And I'm someone who's like, if I'm going to do work, like especially for my day job, I was like, I want to actually do a good job. I don't want it to, I'm just like half doing it. And I had already been working for probably at that point, maybe like 4 or 5 years doing both the podcast and my day job as a financial analyst. And it was like, I'm working all day and then I'm working all night and on the weekends. And I started to get up a little bit of a momentum with the podcast. Things were starting to look a little bit better. I was making some money doing it. So I was like, you know what, if I don't try it now, when else would I try? Like, I don't want to sit there and like have my work become so bad that they're like, well, we're just going to fire you because you're not doing your job. So I was like, you know what, let me give it a shot. I was like, what's the worst that could happen? I have to go back and find another job. So that was my like motivation to say, you know what, why not? I play it safe all the time. Why not give it a shot? I really enjoy it. I'm loving it. I'm having fun. It's turning into an actual job for me. So I just made the leap back in 2021 and here I am. I'm not unemployed yet. So I'm not on the street. So it's working out.
Okay. So I know that you are also a writer and write pieces for various publications. Are there significant differences in your approach to how you create content for print versus how you create it for audio and video?
You know, it is. And writing doesn't come naturally to me. I think that's why I always gravitated towards doing audio and video, just because to me, it's I enjoy it more. And it's just kind of, you know, it's like when you're creating something in video and audio, you can kind of piece it together as you go, right? You're trying things out. You're putting this here, you're like cutting that out. That didn't work. With writing, I find it I need to be a little more strategic and a little more of a planner, because you find yourself writing something, you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense. I guess I need to scrap all that and start over again. But I do find myself having to really work at that skill of writing to get a little bit better and learn to have a different type of voice. Because it's a different tone. You can't write the exact same way you speak. At least for me, I can't. It doesn't come off right when I do it that way. So I do find I have to have a much different approach, much more organized, really thought through before I even start writing that first thought down, because it's gonna go all kinds of wrong if I just try to freestyle it. And like I do some of the audio and video stuff I do, just not the same process. It doesn't work out the same way for me.
All right, good answer. So for question 3, the interesting concept around popcorn finance is that each episode is about as long as it takes to pop a bag of popcorn. How are you able to monetize such short podcast episodes?
Ooh, you know, that's a great question, because it is very difficult, right? Because you can't, if your episode is 6 minutes long, you can't throw in 5 minutes worth of ads. People are not going to stand for that. So you do have to be a little more creative. So I try to figure out ways to introduce, you know, ads in a light touch, a light hand in the way I put them in there. And it's really being, I guess, like a little more well-rounded in how I bring in revenue for the work I do. So I don't rely solely on the podcast, just because I do have limitations on how much ad revenue I can generate from it. So it's through all the other things I do, through writing, through video work, through partnerships with brands, through I do a lot of video content for like banks and credit unions. Things like that are the way that I bring in revenue. So that way I don't have to rely solely on the podcast, because to me, the whole reason why the podcast existed was because it was short form, to the point, we get into it. And I didn't want to sacrifice that style and what my original premise was, just to try to make it generate as much money as possible. So I was like, oh, well, I can just round it out and make money in other ways.
I mean, those are 3 excellent answers. And you're pretty good at keeping each one of them to under 60 seconds. Is there a particular one that you want to expand on a little bit more? We can talk and dive into a bit.
Ooh, okay, that's a good question. Okay, you know what? Let's go with the first one, because I think that's really interesting. And I feel like I've learned some things I didn't expect going full-time doing this work versus, you know, the day job I had worked for my whole life.
So I know, having been a podcaster for as long as I've been one of the questions I get all the time is, how did you make the transition? So for you, you know, you kind of already said that, but what are the differences? Because I mean, when you're working, you're a financial analyst, that's a pretty decent job if I understand what financial analysts do. So to go from that to where you're working full time doing that thing, to where you're like, you know what, I'm going to hang that hat up and I'm going to sit in my closet in front of this microphone and talk to people for 5, 6, 7 minutes at a time. You know, that's got to be nerve wracking, man. I mean, it's like, you know, what did your friends, what did your family think when you told them that that's what you were doing?
Oh, my parents 100% thought it was a horrible idea. I wasn't living with them, not like super young, but they were still like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you got a good job, you got benefits, all this stuff. And I was like, you know what, why not? Because I've never been a risk taker. That's probably why I was doing the work I was doing. Because for me, I'm like, look, I want the sure bet. I want to be as safe, as confident in decisions I make as I can be. But there was something about doing something that was more creative. And I think that's something I always wanted to do. And I've met so many people who, like, you had that thing that you love doing, the thing you enjoy doing, but you kind of just throw it to the back because you're like, hey, I gotta live, I gotta eat. And so you kind of just let that part go. And I found, like, doing the work I was doing, it was kind of like, I just lost the any type of enjoyment I had in that work. And I really wanted to see what could happen if I gave it a try. So that was like really why I was like, you know what, why not give it a shot? And the reality of, like, you can get another job if you really need to, was always kind of like in the back of my mind. So I was like, yeah, just go for it.
Podcast 360 will be back in just a moment. And we're back with Podcast 360.
So I know that one of the most popular jobs is being an influencer, being a creator. There's a lot of folks that want to do this kind of thing. Do you have any advice that you would give to anyone who maybe is that hobbyist and they're trying to say, you know, I really like doing this, but if I can just generate some income, I can move on to maybe making this a career change? Is there any advice that you have for them, things that maybe they should be looking at while they're still holding down a day job that's paying their bills? You know, what would you recommend that someone wanting to get into this business actually do?
You know, I would say don't be in a rush. Like, do not rush it. Do not jump in just because maybe you made, a couple $1,000 or even you made, $10,000, $20,000, because the reality is it's so expensive to live, right? Like you're going to need to keep doing that consistently. And I think the thing I didn't really realize before I stepped away from my day job was the hustle and grind that it is working for yourself. Right. Like you're constantly the one generating every penny that makes its way into your bank account. If the things change, like we had the big shift in the economy after the pandemic, we saw a lot of brand sponsorships. Those things start to kind of slow up a little bit. They're starting to come back a little bit. But during that time, I had a lot of friends who were like, oh, this is tough. And if you are just getting started, it would have been really hard for you. But the key that I saw for people who were able to make it through that period of time is you have to not be so tied to one form of income. You have to be willing to say, I can do 5 different things, 6 different things. And that way, if any one of those things falls through, I have some other things that can still support me and my life, because anything could happen. Anything in the world could change and cause one of those sources of income to dry up. And if you rely too heavily on that one, it's going to be really hard. So for me, it's like if you're doing good, you get some traction, maybe you get some partnerships. I would start thinking and brainstorming about other things you can do that are in your wheelhouse that you can also do to add on to that. And even taking skills from your existing job. Like I will still do consulting work because I still love making spreadsheets. So I'll still do some financial analyst consulting work from time to time because I love sitting down and open up Excel and doing that. And it's something that brings us some extra income. And it's like just kind of like padding the reserve. So if something does go wrong, you're not going to be out on the street.
That is an excellent answer. And I know that's going to be helpful to a lot of people who are, as I said, they're doing it as a hobby, they're doing it as a side gig, and they want to potentially get in more. Is there just any just 1 tip, 2 tips that you want to give to to maybe a new person in this space, as far as like what they should do to even if it's just doing their regular show, they're not doing it for a living. It's just like, I just want to create a show. Is there anything that you have for anybody who's just trying to get started in this space?
I would say, and I've seen you do this, Rob, is one, like, don't feel like you have to be like pigeonholed into one area. I feel like you do so many different things, right? And you cover so many different topics. And yeah, you do a lot around tech, but you have a lot of like with the SMR show that you do, you guys is more conversational. You talk about things you guys love and you enjoy. You do the stuff with Daily Tech News. And I think it's having that variety and also within that variety, things that you really enjoy doing, because it's fun doing something like every now and then, but when it becomes your career, your lifeline, you're going to have to be doing this all the time. So if you do not enjoy whatever it is, the topic you've chosen, or the style, the format you've gone with, and you have to do, if you're someone who's like, I hate making videos, I hate pulling out a camera, I hate talking to the screen. If you choose to do this, you're going to be doing that all the time. So make sure this is something that you truly enjoy, and really imagine yourself, like as you're working on your podcast, on your YouTube channel, whatever it is, that you're like, okay, if this is all I was doing, would I still enjoy this? If this became a job and I had to rely on this, could I keep doing this, or would I get burned out and say, I do not enjoy this, I just liked it because it was something fun to do on the side? I think really being critical about how you approach that, because that transition, when it hits you, you're going to have to really decide, hey, this is the route that I'm going.
That is an excellent, excellent tip. I have a podcasting friend that says, if you do not like the sound of a ball bouncing on the floor, you should probably not play basketball. I think that is, you just encapsulated that a little bit more eloquently. So we're at the end of our show. So before we do, though, I do need to go back and see if I have got the guess right on your 2 truths and a lie. So I want to stick here for a second. I want to see if I want to change my mind. So one of them was a bunch of live interviews in a 24-hour period while at a conference, and the other one was you were that I think that could possibly be the lie is that you were 6'2" at 13 and didn't grow anymore. I'm just thinking, to have that voice that you have, there had to be a lot of testosterone. So maybe that's where it all went. It went to making that voice deep and not making you any taller, because boys generally grow until they're, 19, 20 years old. So I'm going to go with, you did not record 13 live podcast interviews in 24 hours while at a conference in 2017.
Ooh, why do you have such lack in faith of my abilities to record live podcasts?
It's not a lack in faith of abilities, it's time. Because I'm thinking that if you're at the conference, you're probably attending the conference as well. There's 8, 10, 12 hours of conference stuff going on. So if you were doing 13 live podcast interviews, unless they were popcorn finance style, only 5 minutes, that's a heck of a lot of content to pack in to such a short period of time. I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking that's a lot of shows to do in such a short period of time while you got other stuff going on.
Okay. All right. Are you ready for me to reveal the actual answer on this one?
Absolutely. Did I get it? Am I right?
You were wrong. I'm sorry to tell you. that I 100% recorded 13 live interviews in 24 hours, and I did not go to a single session during that entire time.
Okay, I should ask that question. I didn't ask, did you actually attend the conference? You were just there. You didn't actually attend it. Okay.
I was just hustling around. It was my first time going to a conference where people were doing podcasting. I was like, well, let me make the most of it. So I was just walking around, had a recorder, had my laptop, and I was just grabbing people, sitting down at tables. Hey, let's do an episode. And my show was so short, I'm able to do that. It's not, if I was doing an hour-long show, there's no way in the world I would have done this. When episodes are like 10 minutes, you can. It's more doable.
Okay, so what's the lie?
Okay, so the lie is that I started a radio station in high school. I was not that organized and ambitious to do something like that.
Okay, so see, I'm thinking that's the one that sounds the most natural. So I'm thinking that 6'2", you got this deep voice, you sound like you should be on the radio. That is the most probable one. And I did not even think for a second that was not going to be it.
You didn't even go back around to it. Yeah, I'm shocked. Yeah, I've been
I didn't
about
even come back around to it. That sounded so easy. Like, that makes sense. You're a full-time podcaster. You started a radio show when you were in high school. It makes sense. So yeah, I was all kind of wrong on that.
No. In high school, I was playing NBA 2K and No Mercy on Nintendo 64. I was not doing anything worthwhile that I can say, oh, look at what I did. No, it wasn't happening.
All right, so Chris, thank you for being a guest on Podcast 360. This was absolutely awesome. I enjoyed myself. I hope you did as well. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you? Any social media pages or websites or shout outs that you'd like to give?
Oh, yeah. You can find Popcorn Finance, the show I do, wherever you're listening to the podcast right now. I've been doing it for 7 years. I got over 400 episodes out there. You can also look me over on Instagram, Popcorn Finance Podcast, and on TikTok, I'm just regular Popcorn Finance because I forgot to log into regular Popcorn Finance on Instagram and had to change my handle when I first started things. So that's why they're not the same.
All right, so awesome, Chris. Thank you so much once again for joining us. And thanks to the folks over at the Podcast 360 team for having us. And with that, wow.
Thank you for listening to Podcast 360, where you experience a 360-degree view of podcasting. Special thanks to the Podcast Academy and DCP Entertainment. Follow us on social media at The Ambies and at DCP Official on Instagram. And subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode.